Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense, where we make some sense out of the nonsense. Last night I challenged you to really think about when's the last time that you encouraged a father, right? When's the last time that you pointed out that somebody was doing fatherhood wrong? Probably that those two things are going to be different in nature, right? I'm guessing you're not an equal father opportunity, right, critic. You're not looking at things and going, for every time I encourage, I'm going to discourage, or every time I discourage, I'm going to encourage, right? That brings me to one of the things that I want to talk about, right? And I apologize for the hesitation in the last two nights. These are topics, first of all, that are tougher for me to talk about, but I also have a lot of different thoughts about it. You're like, why don't you write those down and present them, Andy? And that's just not how I work, right? But there's a lot of thoughts that are running through my mind on this whole topic, right? Partly because we treat God the same way that we treat humans a lot of times. There are a lot of people that are walking around pointing out how God is not a good father, right? We sing the song, but that's not how we really feel, right? We're constantly pointing out how God could have done this better, or this better, or this better, or this better, or this better, while at the same time we want Him to be a good father and give us all the things that we want, right? So that's got to be difficult for God from the standpoint of, one minute He's listening to us complain about what a bad father is, how He never provides, how He never gives things to us, how He never takes care of us, right? Which is always translated, He's not taking care of us the way we want Him to. And the next minute, we're singing songs of praise to Him about how He's a good father, how He's great, how He's wonderful, how He's... Can you imagine how confusing that must be to God? One minute, we're struggling and crying out, raising our fists to God, and the next minute, we're raising our hands to God and saying how great He is. It's got to cause some heartbreak and some confusion. And we do that to our God on a regular basis. One hand has the fist, the other one has the open palm, and we're doing this all the time, right? And I can imagine God going, which one is it? But when you look at our nation and you look at our culture, we're doing the same thing all the time. With one hand, we're accusing the government of all kinds of things. The next hand, we want something for our government. We want them to protect us while we're lambasting how they're protecting us. We want them to provide for us while at the same time we're telling them what a terrible job they've done in it. We want them to protect and take care of education while telling them what a terrible job they've done at it. This is what we do all the time. And we do it in churches, right? We want people to be good fathers while telling them the whole time how terrible they are and how they need to get better. You see, it's self-preservation because we exist as churches because we keep pointing out to people how sinful they are and how they need us, right? We go through 30, 40, 50 week, if not year, healing processes when we serve a God who heals instantaneously. Not always, but He can heal. But we want to exist as a church, so we need you to need our programs, right? We need you. Paul talks about, and he accuses people of not being mature. You're still drinking milk when you should be on meat, is what he said. We should be encouraging people to be on meat, but instead we benefit from people being on milk. They need us. They need our programs. They need our things. What they need is our Jesus. We should be creating mature Christians. It's the same thing when we talk about fatherhood or motherhood or parenthood or whatever you want to hood it. We should be looking at people and encouraging them to be better, be on meat, get past this, right, immaturity in fatherhood and get to maturity. And part of the way that we do that is pointing out that people get it right. People get it right. People forget sometimes that Peter declared that Jesus was the Messiah and got Jesus to say, that's good, blessed are you, Peter. And then a few minutes later, right, Jesus is looking at Peter and go, get behind me, Satan. So Jesus points out that Peter got it right, and then he points out you got it wrong. But we should be more encouraging in nature, right? God has this desire to bless us and encourage us. Hey, you're trying to be a good father. Again, when's the last time that you encouraged somebody in their trying to be a good father? See, the problem is we're always looking for the destination. We're always looking for the final product, the final results. So we've decided that a good father looks like this, and we're going to bash people until they reach that spot. Somehow, right, that's going to happen. Listen, I have animals. When I want to move my animals to a new pasture, I have my animals whistle trained. They listen to me, they come running, they go into a new pasture. If I had to drive them and beat them into a new pasture, into a new place, by the time they get to the new place, the new pasture, they're going to be beaten up, bruised, swollen legs. They're not going to be able to walk, and they're not going to enjoy the promised land. So somehow we think in churches that if we beat people up enough, that's going to get them where we want them to go, and then they're going to be okay. No, they're going to be beaten up. They're going to be beaten up and unable to enjoy the promised land. You can't beat men into submission to be good fathers. You encourage them into submission and being good fathers. So as you think that standing from the pulpit and declaring and telling people over and over that they're bad is going to get somebody somewhere, that's not how it works. Jesus brought this out about the Pharisees. Like, listen, here's the deal. You're constantly putting people under this heavy yoke. You're constantly pointing out when they get it wrong. What about when they get it right? I can remember being at the Christian school, and I can remember, I think I've said this before, the demerit merit system. And there were several things about it that drove me crazy, right? The first one was we were watching people chase students down the hall to give them a demerit. But I'll wait till the next day to give you a merit, a good thing. The second thing was that no matter how many merits you got, you couldn't undo the fact that you had gotten a demerit. So again, at the end of a month, there was an activity, there was a reward for not getting demerits. And if you got a demerit, 3 merits, it took 3 merits to get rid of a demerit. And the problem, though, was that if I got 1 demerit and I got 3 merits, I erased that demerit on paper, but I had gotten a demerit, so I was ineligible. So if you got a demerit on the first day of school, on the first day of the month, why would you work? What's the encouragement to work? Would just be a good person, and the next month you'll have a child. If you can't erase the sin, right? And that's how some of us feel. Right? We can't get rid of the sin because that's how it's being portrayed. And God says, no, your sin is as far as from the east to the west. I remember it no more. But we remember, you can't erase it. It's always there in front of you. You're always being seen through that lens. So if you're a father and that's what's happening to you, you're always being judged on the fact that at the beginning you weren't a good father, in the middle you weren't a good father, in this moment you weren't a good father. Like, when can you do enough good things to erase it? But also, when are people going to encourage? Hey, if you're going to constantly beat fathers up, you're not getting them to where they need to go. Right? We want to encourage people to get where they need to go. Encourage them in that this is the behavior we want. Right? Not just going to beat the snot out of you and punish you and discipline you when you're not doing the behavior I want. I'm going to encourage you and reward you when this is the behavior I want. This is what I want you to be like. So again, I'm going to ask you the same question as last night. When's the last time that you encouraged somebody? But again, are your words beating people up? This isn't just about fatherhood. This is about things in general. Are your words just beating people up because they just don't get it right time after time after time? Are you expecting that your children are going to become good children because you beat them up? Because you point out every day how they're a bad child? Or are you encouraging them in the moments where they get it right to be a good? God encourages us. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Right? Encourages us to get it right. Does he discipline? Yes. Does he beat us up? No. Nope, he doesn't. Unless we're consistently being defiant, and then he needs to discipline us a little more. Right? I bet you that a bunch of the fathers you know out there, they're not consistently trying to be defiant at being a good father. Most of them have had bad examples, and most of them aren't taught in the church anything but the big picture things. But there's nobody walking up alongside them and saying, hey, here's what it is to be a good father. Right? What are you doing with your words when it comes to fatherhood? Are you encouraging, discouraging, lifting people up, or are you beating people up? Hey, chew on that. See you next time. Nightly Nonsense.